Have you ever found yourself nodding along to a profound truth, completely agreeing with it, and then you just walk away without changing a single thing about your life? We've all been there, right? Well, today we're diving into Dr. David Bauer's fascinating academic breakdown of a really famous biblical text. And what we're going to uncover in this explainer is basically a philosophical detective story about that exact human flaw. It all centers around this ancient, really piercing quote, "But be doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves." It's just one sentence, but man, it perfectly frames the ultimate tension between our internal beliefs and our external actions. It literally forces us to ask whether the stuff we think we believe is actually reflected in the day-to-day reality of how we live. So to unpack this dense theology into some really clear, actionable insights, we're going to hit four key areas. First, doers versus hearers. Second, the mirror parable. Third, the law of liberty. And finally, defining true religion.
All right, let's jump right into section 1, doers versus hearers, and the trap of superficial assent.
Now, what's really interesting here is a specific Greek term Dr. Bauer highlights, paralogizomai. It means deceiving oneself. You see, the danger isn't being conned by some smooth-talking stranger or tricked by an outside force. No, the danger is tricking yourself. It's kind of like, well, it's like buying a gym membership and genuinely believing that just owning the plastic card makes you healthier. You hear a truth, you mentally agree with it, and you mistakenly believe that your intellectual agreement is the exact same thing as actually taking action. And this is brilliantly illustrated by an ancient poetic structure known as a chiasm. It's an A-B-B-A format. Notice how the author traps the negative warnings, being a hearer only and forgetting the mirror, right in the middle. Actually, scratch that, it's more like they purposefully sandwich them between the ultimate positive goals. It starts with be doers and ends with the doer perseveres. It's a structural way of showing that action must literally surround and define our beliefs. The grammar itself is telling us that without action on the outside, the belief on the inside is just trapped, useless. Which brings us to section 2, the mirror parable, and confronting the spiritual face.
To show just how absurd inaction is, the text asks a painfully logical question. Why look into a mirror if you're not going to change what you see? I mean, think about it. It makes absolutely zero sense to notice dirt on your face in a reflection and then just walk away doing nothing about it. If you aren't going to fix the flaw, the entire act of looking was a complete waste of time. You gathered the information, sure, but you aborted the process before any actual transformation could happen.
This is exactly where the text contrasts two entirely different ways of looking. On one hand, you have katanoa. That's a fleeting, superficial glance. It's like quickly checking your hair as you sprint out the front door. You see yourself for a fraction of a second and boom, you move on. But then you have parakupto. This implies physically bending down to peer deeply and intently. It's looking into a spiritual mirror to constantly confront both your inadequacies and your potential, and actually allowing what you see to fundamentally reshape who you are. Moving on to section 3, the law of liberty and freedom from self-obsession. Here, Bauer introduces what sounds like an absolute paradox, a law that creates freedom. He uses this incredible phrase, the sacramental character of behavior. What he's emphasizing is that true deliverance isn't passive. It's not something that just magically washes over you while you sit comfortably in a chair thinking deep thoughts. Not at all. It is physically mediated through your actions. You literally experience freedom in the very process of doing the work. The behavior itself is the vehicle for transformation. And this perfectly captures what we're actually being freed from. By nature, we humans are trapped by an obsession with our own security, our own desires. But this law of liberty completely breaks that bondage of self-interest. It frees us from self-obsession so we can finally actively love our neighbors. The ultimate freedom isn't found in looking inward, it's found in outward action. The second you stop obsessing over your own reflection, you are liberated to serve others. Which leads us to our final stop, section 4. Defining true religion, behavior over liturgy.
All of this builds into the ultimate definition of what it means to practice a faith that's actually acceptable to God. Notice the strict, ancient cultic language James uses here, words like pure and undefiled. Now, in the ancient world, those words were exclusively reserved for pristine animal sacrifices and perfect temple rituals. But shockingly, James strips those words right out of the temple and applies them to everyday social behavior. He's telling his audience that empty, vain religion, mataios, is useless. Ceremonial correctness means absolutely nothing without active behavior that genuinely reflects God's character.
So Bauer breaks this down into 4 intensely practical components. First, a bridled tongue, controlling your speech so it heals rather than harms. Second, a pure character. Third, you must physically step out to care for orphans and widows, who back then represented the absolute most vulnerable groups in society. And finally, keeping yourself unstained from the world. And interestingly, Bauer notes that being unstained doesn't mean becoming some isolated monk hiding in a cave. It means being deeply involved in the messiness of society, all while refusing to adopt the world's selfish, status-driven values.
So, what's the big takeaway from this explainer? Well, Bauer's final synthesis leaves us with this really powerful framework. True religion is a complete system of moral responsibility. You just cannot compartmentalize your life. Your relationship with God is intrinsically and unavoidably determined by how actively you engage with others, especially the needy. Put simply, you can't claim to worship the Creator if you're actively ignoring the well-being of His creation.
I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought to ponder today. When you look deeply at your own spiritual face, do you walk away and immediately forget who you're supposed to be? Or do you act? Is your belief just a fleeting reflection in a mirror, or is it actively reshaping the world around you? Keep peering intently into that mirror, and most importantly, keep acting on what you see.